Today, we're plugging into a massive proposal that's set to completely transform India's power sector, the Electricity Amendment Bill. You can think of it as a new blueprint, one designed to rewire how the entire country gets and pays for its power.
I mean, just think about that for a second. What if all three of those things could happen at once? Well, that's not just some nice idea, it's the core promise behind this incredibly ambitious bill. It's trying to answer that exact question by changing the very fundamentals of how power is delivered across India.
So here's how we're going to break it all down. First, we'll get into why the current system is broken and needs a reboot. Then we'll look at the blueprint itself, the bill. After that, we'll dive into its core pillars, figure out who the winners are, and finally, connect it all to India's bigger, long-term goals.
Okay, so before we can really appreciate the solution, we've got to understand the problem, right? Why is such a massive overhaul even being considered? Well, the reasons are pretty deep, and they've been holding the whole sector back for years.
It pretty much boils down to three huge issues. First, you've got the local distribution companies, the DISCOMs, that are just constantly losing money. That makes it really hard for them to invest in keeping the grid modern and reliable. Second, for most people, there's just no choice. You're stuck with one local monopoly supplier, take it or leave it. And third, the pricing structure is all out of whack, and it's actually hurting India's manufacturing industry.
Let's dig into that third point for a second, this idea called cross-subsidization. Right now, big industrial users are forced to pay way more for their electricity. And that extra cash, it gets used to lower the price for other groups of consumers. Now, while that might sound okay in theory, the side effect is a big one. It makes Indian manufacturing more expensive, and that makes it harder for them to compete globally. And that's exactly where this bill comes in. This isn't just some small fix. The Electricity Amendment Bill is designed to be a complete blueprint to tackle these problems head-on.
You know, this quote from the source material really hits the nail on the head. The goal isn't just to patch up old issues. It's about building a whole new system that's ready for the future, one that's modern, efficient, and resilient enough to handle a booming economy.
So what's the big picture here? What is this bill really trying to do? Well, first, it's about getting reliable, affordable power to everyone. Second, and this is huge, it's about moving away from monopolies and toward real, performance-based competition. And third, it's about getting smarter and making better use of the electricity grid we already have.
All right, so we've covered the why and the what. Now it's time for the how. Let's get into the real nuts and bolts here. How are these big, ambitious ideas actually supposed to work in the real world?
The absolute central idea of this whole thing is something called regulated competition. So instead of one company owning all the wires and being your only choice for electricity, the bill opens things up. It would allow multiple companies, both government and private, to compete for your business in the same area. They'd all use the same shared network of wires, kind of like how different airlines all use the same airport to fly you places.
And listen, this isn't some crazy new experiment. This model is already working successfully in India right now. The system that moves power between states, the ISTS, has been running on this exact principle of shared infrastructure for years, and it's proven to be incredibly effective. And this shows you just how brilliantly it works. With the ISTS, different companies compete to build the big transmission lines. Then everyone who uses the system pays a single shared fee to access it. And the result? Well, all that healthy competition has driven down costs and gotten projects built way faster. The big idea is to take that winning formula and apply it to our local power distribution.
And a really key part of this whole reform is finally fixing that cross-subsidy problem we talked about. The bill sets a hard deadline. It says that within 5 years, those extra charges on industries like manufacturing, railways, and metros have to go. That's a direct shot in the arm for their competitiveness.
Okay, so we get the mechanics, but what does all this actually mean for you, or for a farmer, or for a factory owner? Let's break down the real-world impact on different groups.
This table sums it up perfectly. For the manufacturing industry, it's a huge win. Lower power bills mean they can compete better. For farmers and low-income households, and this is crucial, their subsidies are protected, so their rates shouldn't change. And for literally everyone else, more competition should mean better service, more innovation, and more choice.
Now, I really want to stress this point because it's so important. The bill makes it crystal clear that existing subsidies are fully protected, but instead of being hidden inside confusing electricity tariffs, the government will pay for them directly and transparently out of its own budget. This ensures that the most vulnerable consumers are totally shielded from these changes.
All right, let's zoom out for the final piece of the puzzle. This bill isn't just about kilowatts and power lines. It's really about powering India's biggest economic ambitions for the next several decades.
And there's the connection right there. These reforms are seen as a cornerstone for achieving the vision of Viksit Bharat, or a developed India, by the year 2047. You simply cannot have sustained, long-term economic growth without a modern, efficient, and stable power sector. It's non-negotiable.
And the bill goes even further than just introducing competition. It's about building a stronger system all around. It gives the regulators more power to enforce rules, it actively promotes buying more renewable energy, and it sets up a new council so that the central government and the states are actually on the same page. So there you have it. The blueprint is on the table. It promises to move us from old monopolies to a new, competitive market, all in the name of a more efficient and reliable power sector. But the ultimate question is still out there. Is this bill going to be the switch that truly illuminates India's future?